Welcome, Kansas gun community. I wanted to bring somebody special on today and actually to introduce something that we're co-hosting with Tallgrass Shooting Sports right outside Manhattan. And you'll probably, I hope you know the name, but we're going to give him a chance to introduce himself as well. But KS Guncom is co-hosting with Tallgrass Shooting Sports, John Correia of Active Self-Protection. John, how you doing today, man?
Thanks for having me on, Lyle. I am awesome, man. Every day's a holiday and every meal's a feast. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. Just tell us a little bit for some that may not know. They may not be. And hey, subscribe to his channel, by the way. If you're on YouTube, go to Active Self-Protection and Active Self-Protection Extra on YouTube. But tell us a little bit about Active Self-Protection, how you got there, and some background.
Yeah, it's a self-defensive firearms training company based out of Phoenix, Arizona. I started the company in 2011. Really, honestly, if I'm real, to write off ammo. I was into the training scene myself and all that, so writing that off was a big deal. So I started teaching some classes because at my core, I'm a teacher. I taught undergrads for 9 years, graduate students for 5 years, pastored a church for 14 and a half. Just recently transitioned to full-time in active self-protection in February of this year. And so I'm not in vocational ministry anymore. I didn't leave the faith, just, put down vocational ministry. It can burn you out in a hurry. Chewed me up and spit me out after 14 and a half years. So I say I'm on a break from that. I don't know how long that break will be. I love being a shepherd. I'm kind of tired of running a 501c3 nonprofit in America. Started really training with firearms in 2006, started my empty-handed skills journey in 2006 as well. So right now I have a first-degree black belt in an art that's derived from American Kempo known as UMAS, and I have pistol certifications from various national level organizations. So yes, I have the NRA certs. I'm a range master certified firearms instructor, 6-hour academy semi-auto pistol instructor qualified. Shootingperformance.com, that's Mike Seeklander, firearms development instructor certified. So I love to train. I'm going to get 250 hours as a student in gun school this year between TACCon and taking classes from Steve Fisher and Scott Jedlinski and, man, you name it. I've trained with some amazing guys. Got a class in earlier with John Lovell this year. So having a great time training like it's my job, because it is, and passing that knowledge on to others. So if you know me, though, you know me from YouTube, right? So I run the most viewed channel in the self-defense and firearms space in the world, which is kind of crazy to say. We reach about anywhere from 20 to 30 million views a month right now. And of course, there are some incredible figures in the community like Hickok 45 has more subscribers than I do for sure. Iraq Veteran 8888, love those guys. Matt Carricker Demolition Ranch is the kind of big dog in the industry. But depending on the month, I get more views than those guys do, and I'm not competing. I love all their channels. I'm not competing. But if you know me, from people send me real life surveillance videos of armed robberies, carjackings, muggings, stabbings, home invasions. And I do after action reports on them. So every day, every single day of the year on the main Active Self-Protection channel, we post a video of a real life surveillance video of a defensive encounter of some kind from all over the world. About half of them come from the United States. About a quarter of them come from Brazil. The remaining 25–30% come from the rest of the world. And I do lessons learned from that incident. And that lessons learned lifestyle comes from my military background. I was in the Navy for 8 years. I operated nuclear reactors. I wasn't a door kicker. I wasn't a gun guy. But if anybody had any problems on a nuclear reactor in the Navy, we would do an after action report on it and then propagate that to the whole fleet so that every operator of nuclear reactors knew what happened and could train, and it didn't have to happen to them. So that's what we try to do. That's education. On the second channel, Active Self-Protection Extra, we live the training life. So we take the lessons that we see there and we put them into play. I teach people firearm skills. We have a weekly dry fire challenge there. We do legal stuff over there. I invite attorneys to come in and talk about the legal aspects of defensive force and other subject matter experts. We do empty-handed skills. We show classes on the mat. We do stuff at the range. So that's more of how do I integrate this into my life and all things guns and self-defense that's not the daily narrative videos. So that's me.
Yeah. No, John has been a good friend of mine, and I cherish his friendship yeah, personally. And then also on the professional side, now we're working together to try to bring some of his knowledge to Kansas, and for the first time. And Mike Irvin over at Tallgrass Shooting Sports and right outside of Manhattan has been so gracious. Him and I have known each other for about a decade, and man, to be able to use their range over there and to integrate some things together, to bring together the two opportunities that people are going to have coming up next week. I mean, this is right on top of us next week. And so we wanted to get on and just kind of make this fresh and anew. Because we've been really pumping it, and everybody's been seeing it on our social and stuff. But now, what and you and I both, I'm not I'm not ashamed at all to admit I've been in ministry since 1995, and still on staff in a church as a worship leader. But I've also been in the firearms industry for I've full time. I mean, really full time, if you want to call it, for about 6 years. And so I've really been around guns all my life and all that type of thing. We could go on about that, and it's not about me. But my position coming from the church security thing is what we're going to kind of talk about first, which is going to be on Friday, the 19th of October. Okay, so if y'all are listening, Friday, the 19th of October. I know there's some people that are late to the game, and they're like, oh. Yeah, you need to get registered for this. This is next week.
Next week.
Yeah, for church security though, I have about 20 hours myself of training in church security, formal training in church security, and help start one team myself in a church here locally. But that is a passion as a pastor. I was a senior pastor for 10 years and now on staff as a worship leader. But that's a big passion of mine. Talk to us about your passion and your approach to how you'll teach church security, if you will.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things that really came out of the last one that we did in Detroit is a reminder to me that marketing matters. And so I tell folks, listen, when you go back to your congregation, when people think, you have a security team, like, well, wait a minute, why do we have security? Does that mean we're unsafe? What's wrong? And all those things. So we talk about church safety and having a safety team. And that safety team is beyond, shooting an active killer. That's like the least likely challenge to occur. So when we talk about church security or church safety, most folks that I know of that are doing this, and I have nothing but respect, and I'm excited. There's several groups, and that's getting to be a thing. I really think since Sutherland Springs that people are starting to pay attention to, and they're going, okay, we can't ignore this anymore. We have to really think about this. As they approach it from a perspective of security and from a security professional's perspective. So really the church part is minimized, and they look at it as event and venue security. And that event and venue security is no different to them really in any capacity than a concert, than any other speaking engagement. So if they were looking at security for, the highest level would be like the president coming in to speak. So how do we secure this venue? How do we keep it safe? And those kind of things. So they're looking at it from a very event specific and venue specific thing. I look at it as a pastor. My real focus is that the church is in business and exists to make disciples of Jesus. And so here's the thing. When the security guy argues with the senior pastor, and the security guy wants the church to be safe, secure, protected, and the senior pastor wants the church to be open and welcoming and inviting. Well, when this guy who is not the top dog argues with this guy who is the top dog, guess who wins? It ain't the security guy, right? So first of all, you have to approach this idea of safety from a perspective that says, no, we want our church to be a place where people can meet the family of God, be discipled and taught how to follow Jesus, and encounter the living God. And to do that, they have to be safe. They also have to feel safe. And so we want to put security as the foundation, as the safety net underneath this idea of openness and transparency. And that takes a lot of things. What are the most likely problems you're going to encounter? Well, I know in my 14 years of pastoring, we never had an active murderer, but I sure had a couple of lost kids on campus. I sure had a couple of medical emergencies on campus. I sure had a couple of domestics that blew up, that showed up on campus. You know, I sure had a couple people angry at pastor for what pastor said about how the scriptures make our lives different, or should make our lives different. You know, so those kind of things, and learning how to manage crisis and manage conflict, learning the problems that we need so that we can go back to our congregation. The other thing that I do is I don't do specifics, I do principles. And the reason for that is that, you know, the facilities in the congregation that you are in, Lyle, are different than the one that I'm in. Every church, unless you're Mormon, right? Mormons have a standardized building plan, but they're the only ones with a standardized building plan. All the rest of us, it's an incredibly unique, every building is unique, and your culture is unique, and who is there who can help you is unique, and your skill sets are unique. So if I go, well, here's the steps you take, well, that may not work in your context. But if instead we say, from a pastoral perspective, here are the principles that you need to think about to then put into place in your context as you build a safety team that works together with your pastors to disciple the flock. And then that to me is more valuable. And then I tell folks, look, if then you want somebody to come in and help you build that as an individual thing, that we learn what your congregational needs are, because a church of 40 has a different set of needs for security than a church of 4,000, and a church of 400 has different as well. So I really focus on churches under 200 because that's kind of my bailiwick as I pastored. Yeah. And because you get a church over 1,000, you start adding professionals to the mix. You start hiring off-duty cops. You start having a different set of problems. You know, you start having problems in the parking lot that you don't at a church of 100. So, you know, your problems change in those things. So we talk about those things. And then we do talk a little bit about the active killer. It is something we have to deal with. In fact, not to name drop too much, but I was just on email this week with Jeannie Assam, who stopped the active murderer at New Life Church in Colorado, and an incredible hero who we should recognize what she did. And Sutherland Springs, literally nobody made it out of that church without either being murdered or injured. And that church closed. It'll never be a congregation again. And you know, and that one was only the latest one. So there's that stuff does happen. And the problem of an active murderer in church is very different than the problem of interpersonal violence or predatory violence. So instead of you know, somebody wanting your wallet, they just want you dead. And that is a very different problem. And the shot that you're going to have to take, for instance, in Detroit, and what we will do in the live fire portion next week, is we start with a cold 25-yard shot. And you go, whoa, that's a long distance shot. It sure is. And we started under some time pressure because somebody's killing people in your church. And that shot is very viable if you think about the distances in most sanctuaries. If you look at the distances between buildings in most facilities, 25 yards is kind of a minimum. So, and then we deal with moving with a firearm in our hand. We move, which is not taught anywhere up to the highest levels. Yeah. We do that with blue guns and with cert pistols and those kind of things. So I'm not having people wandering around with guns all over the place. But learning how to use cover and concealment effectively, because you're going to be moving with a gun in your hand. You probably won't be present and see the gunfire. You might hear it first, have to move to it. That's going to involve things, angles, both horizontally and vertically, so that you're not endangering your congregation when you have to put somebody down, and then realistic understanding of your skill set. So that's a lot to handle in a 5 to 7 hour presentation, and we try to pack it all in there. And it definitely leaves people reeling a little bit. In fact, we just today posted a video on the Active Self-Protection Expert channel with a bit of a description of our church safety seminar. So that'd be a good thing for people to check out.
Yeah, we did actually. It's been reposted, I know, on our stuff, and I think Tallgrass did too. So, but then I appreciated that very much, that insight through that video. But then this is why, you know, you and I have talked about this before, and so this is why we wanted to bring you in, because of the approach that you have. Like I said, I have 20 hours of documented training in that area, but it was all classroom for the most part. We did some hand-on stuff, but there wasn't it was very different. I'll put it that way. And not that I diminish the training, man, thank the Lord that I've had what I've had. But what I want folks to think about You know, they're out there, maybe they're a pastor, maybe they're a church leader, maybe they're just a congregant. And so I think one of the things, and you know this too, is they watch this video, but hopefully, and they'll be like, well, we don't need all of that. I mean, come on, it's never going to happen to us or whatever. I mean, all this medical and everything. I mean, I'm not going to pay for money to go learn all this stuff. I would say this, from being a pastor and having to deal with medicals mostly, some domestic situations. I've had to deal with two of them in particular. I've had to literally kick people off the property of the church.
I have done that too.
And yeah, and it is not fun. We've had the police on our property, things of that nature. It's better to be prepared and know, and the more you know, the more you can go. You know, I mean, knowledge is power, and that's what I think you bring to the table. So as we approach the church security or the church safety situation, maybe address for those church leaders that are church leaders that may see this, because I'm going to disseminate this myself to them, but church leaders that are just pastors, and hey, I'm not carrying a gun. We have a church that guys that do that. Okay. But
well, I get that, but the pastor has to be the cheerleader. You know this. If you're a pastor, especially the top dog, if you're the senior pastor, and again, at a church of 70, you are it. You're the chief cook and bottle washer, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not a cheerleader for it and you don't understand it, you don't have to run it, but you have to understand it. If you don't, it won't go. It just won't. And that's the bottom line. That deals with your small groups. That deals with your Sunday school ministry. That deals with your children's ministry. If you are not in there and driving it, it's not going to happen. So this gives you an understanding of what the challenges are that you face so that you can actually address them. And listen, if you have not yet in your church as a church leader had a medical emergency, it's coming. And that could be anything from a kid falling on the playground and busting their arm real bad, or whacking, they fall off the monkey bars and whack their head and they've got a cut and they're bleeding pretty good. Yeah. Or, grandma broke her hip and fell down and on her way in with her walker. Now I said that the way I said it on purpose. She didn't fall down and break her hip. She broke her hip while walking and fell down. That happens. Somebody has a stroke in worship services. These things go down. Somebody has diabetic shock. Their blood sugar level crashes and they go into shock. These things happen and you have to be ready for them. You don't have to be an EMT. You don't have to be a medical professional, but you need to have a medical plan in place. You have mom and dad are arguing and mom leaves dad and you're not involved in it. You don't know anything about it. Mom moves out into an apartment, but brings her kids to Sunday school, and dad shows up because he wants time with his kids. And the Sunday school teacher goes, I'm sorry, I can't release your children to you. And now you got an angry dad. And if that hasn't happened to you in your congregation, it's coming. It's coming. Yep. So, knowing how to deal with that. And we talk about things like verbal judo and de-escalation techniques and the LEAPS method of communication that can help with those kind of things. So we're not trying to make gunfighters out of pastors. If a pastor wants to carry a firearm and wants to learn those skills, I value that. I carry it every day in the pulpit. Yeah. I carry, if I'm on campus at church, I'm carrying, I bring a bubble of safety with me everywhere I go. But if you don't want to be that guy or that gal, I totally get it. And I'm not telling you have to be that. That's not what this is about. This is not gunfighting for pastors. This is church safety for all churches, regardless of size, regardless of, your discussion of violence.
And we've tried to make that very, as far as costs, welcoming. I don't know. I'm not got the word right off the top of my head, but we tried to make that very available to those pastors that just they don't want to go through the live fire portion of the training. It's $20, y'all.
And here's my promise. Here's my promise. If you go through the seminar, pay your $20, okay? Pay the $20. And if you get through it and you go, this doesn't apply to me, this information wasn't any good to me, I don't see any value here, I will literally hand you your $20 back right there. I will give you your $20 and say, hey man, I appreciate it. Give me your feedback. What would have been effective and helpful for you? And I will give you your $20 back, and I will not even give you a hard time about it. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you another thing. If there's a pastor out there that watches this, a church leader that's like, yeah, I really, man, we could use this knowledge so much, but I either have to go to the seminar or I have to buy groceries. then you call me, message Lyle, I will pay your $20. Okay. Now I won't pay your $20 just because you're cheap, right? If you roll in your Benz and I paid your $20, I'm going to be frustrated with you. Okay. But if it really is a legitimate financial need, I want to bless the kingdom of God. I want to bless the body of Christ. So let me know if I can help.
And that's what we do. You know, Tallgrass is operated on Living Water Ranch right outside Manhattan. It's a Christian conference and retreat center, and Mike has been in ministry too, and myself. So our heart is in the same place as you. Kind of transitioning now into Friday night. Friday night is going to be a transition point because that's where we're going to transition to survive the fight in the after action report and a Q&A type teaching that you're going to be doing. And some giveaways that we're going to be having too. I mean, we're going to give away a VP9, and that night, I know you're brand ambassador for HK.
I am. I love the crowd space magic.
So yeah, and then we're also going to be giving away some ammo, I think, and then there's going to be framework done from Williams Gunworks in Wichita. I'm trying to think of all the off the top of my head. We have several vendors coming. We'll put it that way, and each one is donating something for giveaways. Awesome. So, and you don't have to pay any more than the $25. Those that are watching, $25 for Friday night for dinner and a movie with John. Okay.
Well, and what we do there is interesting because I think some people think I'm just doing the videos live. That's not what I'm doing. Yeah. In fact, so what that is that we've had a lot of people ask, you know, hey, John, what are the big lessons you've learned? So that's what this seminar is. I at this point have watched 15, 16,000 defensive encounters. And I try to be what I call an evidence-based defensive trainer. So that means the things that I focus on in my own defensive training and that I teach others are based on what we see happen in real life encounters. So this particular presentation is the 22 biggest lessons that I've learned watching these again and again. So the things that show up again and again and again and again, we talk about them in kind of from most significant to least. And so we make a point, we talk about that point, we see how that goes, we explain it, we kind of work some through it. And then we do show a video for each one that we don't break down all the lessons in that video. We just go, hey, watch this in this particular video. And then we move on to the next point. So it's a 3-hour presentation that people then get an idea of, wow, this is how real gunfights happen. And this is how real defensive encounters go. So then that bleeds into the next day into the live fire portion, because then what we do, if you're coming to live fire, which I really encourage people to come to, I mean, it's a full day of training at which I guarantee you will get better. I guarantee you will get better at the skills you will need in a gunfight. But we build those skills based off Friday night. So it's funny when people show up on Friday night, then they come on Saturday and they go, wow, John, you actually do the things here that we talked about on Friday. And I go, you know, we call that a clue, right? You know, that's a clue. And so then what we do on Saturday is we say, okay, so the things that we learned on Friday that are the most critical skills that we have to do, we call it the Pareto Principle. Most people know it as the 20-80 rule, right? That 80% of your outcomes come from 20% of your inputs. So we focus on those 20% of inputs that get us 80% of outcomes, namely and specifically an incredibly reliable and fast draw of the gun from the holster and getting first, second, third shots on target. And dealing with multiples. So those 4 skills take us a full day to work on. And some people go, well, that sounds kind of boring because I'm not doing any tactical fantasy band camp. I'm not doing any akimbo flips. I'm not doing, huge malfunction clearance, mag reload, hay bale jumps. Well, that's all true, but none of that stuff is probably what you're going to need in a gunfight. Once you've got these things down pat, that I can run a bill drill really fast, that I can do a failure to stop or what Dave Spalding calls a skill on demand drill, then then we can start working on that other stuff and have fun with it. But the first things that we need to do is be able to do these things fast, accurate every time, and cold. So, and we send people home. One of the big things we try to do is we send everyone home with a sheet that says, here's how I performed cold in the morning. Here's how I performed at the end of training so that I can see my improvement. And then here are the things, the drills that I can work on that will help me to improve them further, both in my dry fire and my own range sessions, so that you can actually improve and get better.
Not to be trite in any way, but it's 49 degrees right now as we speak here. So when you say cold, people might be a little bit chilly.
So, I mean,
So,
and that's the reality of things is that, you know, I mean, you're going to fight in whatever environment you have. Now, I hear 49 degrees and this Phoenix boy, I'm going to die. I'm going to be all bundled up. I'm going to be all, you know, heavy, like no touchy. But,
no, but yes,
you know, that's what you find yourself in. And so you better be ready for that. And think a thing, if it's, you know, if it's like that on our live fire day and we get out there and it's 40 degrees, then the first thing that we'll talk about is your carry gun, can it accommodate the gloves that you wear? You know, if it can't, well, that could be a problem. You know what I mean? That might be a challenge. And I bring mine. I tend to, I'll see if I bring them this next weekend. I bring a set of gloves that it's really hard to work a gun with. And then a set of gloves that aren't quite as good for keeping me warm all the time with my hands not in my pockets, but are much better to run a gun with. And knowing what that does to your grip, knowing what that does for your manipulations, man, that's important stuff. And we work on all that stuff.
Yeah, very, very good. And I know there's several that are going to be coming. They're already signed up here in the area, and the spaces are being taken up right now. I mean, there's about there's 30 spaces available on Saturday, and I think we're right now it's somewhere around 16. So I mean, that's actually that was the last I heard from Mike yesterday, so that may have changed even today. I don't know. So if you're planning on being here Saturday for the Survive the Fight live fire and learning your skills, getting your skills down, please, any of the events really, please register today. Call Mike up there on the ranch at 410-5337. That's area code 785-410-5337. And you can get signed up for any and all events. But then, you know, just to kind of wrap it up here too, maybe somebody didn't catch that number. Go back. You can replay the video and you can find out what the number is. We'll include it down the little description below as well. But how can folks get a hold of active self-protection? Just kind of plug your own self here, man.
Sure. Well, you find us on the web, of course. YouTube is a great place to find us. YouTube.com/active self-protection, or just use your app, search active self-protection. I'll show right up. Both channels will show up there. We have a Facebook page. It's very active. Facebook.com/active self-protection, or same thing. Use your app, search active self-protection. It'll show up. And if you need us directly, private message us, PM us on Facebook. On the Facebook page, we answer that very regularly. That's usually my XO, Stephanie, who is answering immediate messages. But if you need me personally for something, you know, she'll get me. I'll tell you, she's smarter than I am, and she's got 99.9% of the answers. So, you know, usually she's better to talk to anyways. You know, you can find us on the web, activeselfprotection.com. I have a Twitter account as well, though I kind of stink at Twitter. You can follow me on the grams at Active Self-Protection, and find us anyway. And the best way to contact me is to come and see me on Friday and Saturday. We'll have some dinner afterwards on Friday night, and, you know, people can come and join us for that, and we'll hang out. And I'm not, it's weird in my life right now, kind of being a D-list YouTube celebrity now, but that's not who I am. I'm just John, who's, you know, the Lord has given some crazy stuff to, and so let's hang out. I'd love to meet people.
Yeah, I know there are guys who want to do that, and so we're looking forward to it with great anticipation. KS Guncom is, and then Tallgrass Shooting Sports, Mike Irvin out there. Again, if you want to register, I'm really asking y'all, you need to do it now. We're going to be a drop dead deadline here next week, because we need to know how many to feed. Because Friday night we're giving you dinner, and then also actually Friday morning everybody gets a light breakfast and lunch for $20, y'all. You can't even go down to Chili's and then do that with McDonald's put together, and get John and his expertise. So if you're a church leader, $20 in the morning, or if you want to stay all day, it's $90. And that includes lunch, light breakfast, and I mean, you know, and the expertise. I mean, it's just you can't beat it. I mean, it's an awesome, you know, deal, if you will, for church safety. And then on Friday nights, $25, you get a chance to win stuff. You get dinner, and you get this incredible training, realistic training from John. So I'm really encouraging you to call up 785-410-5337 and get a hold of Mike and sign up, because you'll not regret it. I seriously, I know John, and you'll not regret it. You'll not walk away going, "Well, that was a bunch of waste of time." You'll not be in that case. So,
and if you did, I'll give you your money back. I promise you I will.
Well, I doubt you'll have to do that. I really highly doubt you'll have to do that. So if you want to get a hold of us, of course, we're right on Facebook, KS Guncom or Kansas Gun Community. We have a page as well as a Facebook group. We're on the Grams as well under Kansas Gun Community. Check us out. You're gonna see stuff about John there. So we're gonna maybe make him an honorary Kansan. For he's from Arizona.
I'm excited about it.
But well, John, thank you for taking time out today, man. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward, man, to seeing you next week and spending time with you personally, as well as having everybody around us too there. So
really excited to come, man. I'm excited to come out and train and get to know you guys better and more personally. And I really can't say it enough. This isn't who I was supposed to be, and the Lord has me here, and I'm really excited about it. And He's doing great stuff, so I'm excited to train with everybody.
Well, we will see you next. I'll see you next Thursday. Everybody else will see you next Friday. So, for those of you who care, there will be others there that you'll recognize, possibly if you're a YouTube person or you keep up with Kansas Gun Community. People like Corinne Mosier. Mark Grimsley from Fit and Fire, John from Crusader Arms Channel. There's people that if you're around Kansas, you'll recognize. They'll be there. So and then they're not to overshadow. They're there for John. So that tells you something right there. Corinne Mosier, she was emphatic. She's like, "Lyle, when is that? I want to be there." And she was emphatic about that. Wanted to train under you, John. So I hope that. Well,
I hope I can live up to it.
You will, brother. You will. So, man, I'm going to close it out, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And everybody call. I'll leave in the description down below. You will see the number to call and register and come and be with us. If you can't find, if you can't get on the phone or whatever, I don't know, get it. Check the Facebook out too. So get to us and get to active self-protection. John, thank you so much, man. And
thanks, Lyle. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for what you do for the community and for the church of the Lord too. I mean, and for the kingdom of Christ. So, well, Kansas, I say KGC, KS Guncom. I use all these different acronyms and ways of saying it, but y'all have a good day. This is going to be probably dropping later on after we've recorded this. But have a good day and a good week coming up here. And please, as always, stay Kansas proud.